live. Today we're talking about how to maximize your MCAT prep. So if you are a student and you either are starting your MCAT prep or you're in the middle of your MCAT prep and you're looking for a huge boost, you're looking for a way to elevate your prep so that you can rapidly improve your score, this is the video you've been looking for. We're going to talk about key strategies that you can completely change your prep from the traditional approach of doing a bunch of full-length tests, doing questions as an afterthought. We're going to flip all that on its head, get you some exact strategies for executing on your MCAT prep and being successful. So hit the intro and let me know how your MCAT prep's going. Comment in the box right now. Let me know how your MCAT prep's going. Let me know any questions you have, and I'll make sure I address them in this video. Today is the day, guys. You're going to take your future into your own hands. You're going to dominate. You're going to be successful. No excuses, just dominate. All right, guys. Like I said, I'm Dr. Pinesett. I'm here as always to help you guys be more productive, more positive pre-meds, to live your journey, to love your journey, and to get to your favorite, your top, your dream medical school. And you guys know this MCAT, the MCAT, right? It's that last major hurdle before you get to that white coat. And for many students, it's very frustrating. Cool, great, 41, what's up? Let's get it today, right? For many students, it's very frustrating because you've worked so hard for so long. You're trying to get into medical school. You've done all the years, you've prepared the GPA, you've done all the grunt work, all the volunteering, and now here's the MCAT. And you're like, gosh, dang it, this test is insane. And today we're going to talk about one of the biggest misconceptions of MCAT prep, and that is you should do as many full lengths as possible. I'm going to deconstruct this, break this down, show you why full length tests are actually poison to your top MCAT score. I'm going to show you this today, and then I'm going to show you the alternative of how you can be a student who is ready for the MCAT, dialed into the MCAT, a student who understands the process and how they ask questions, a student who has the stamina to attack this long exam. I'm going to teach you how to ramp up, how to gear up, how to be the successful MCAT student. So if you're ready right now, like this video. If you're ready, comment like Cool Grades doing right now, let me know. Talking about creating a monthly schedule like you said. So in the chronic phase, building up the fund of knowledge. Okay, I love it. Oh, Osa, what up? All right. So one of my students who's talking about the fundamentals of MCAT prep that I teach in my course, How to Dominate the MCAT Without an Expensive Prep class. It is the most affordable, most effective MCAT prep out there, guys. As a disadvantaged student myself back in the day, I know what it is to be short on cash and long on dreams. And so I wanted to create this opportunity to have this affordable MCAT course for you guys. So please check it out on my website, premedproducer.com. I'll actually put a link with a discount in the description below after I'm done being live here today, because we always want discounts, right? Even if it's affordable, we want even more discounts because we want you guys to succeed and have what you need to be successful. So with the MCAT, full length test, full length test is what we hear all the time. And you hear, hey, listen, if you're struggling with the MCAT, take my full-length test. Hey, if you want to really ramp your score, take a full-length test. And this is such bad advice, guys. And if anybody ever tells you, hey, you're struggling with your MCAT, take my full-length test, you tell that person, get away from me, you poison wizard, you witch, you sorcerer of doom trying to sabotage my MCAT prep. Because the truth is, guys, people who tell you that aren't real study experts, aren't real experts on the MCAT, and don't know what they're talking about. And the unfortunate thing is, like some things in our society, we just repeat what we hear. And that's what's happened with full-length tests, is that the research shows, let's go back to it, right? The core research for why full-length tests are so hyped for the MCAT goes back to inquiry-based learning, question-based learning, problem-based learning, which means that we learn best from questions because it creates an opportunity for highly active learning where we have to think, recall, apply our knowledge and our information in a modality that's applicable on the exam. And so for all these reasons, inquiry-based learning, problem-based learning, question-based learning, concept-based learning, all this stuff is very, very powerful. And this is what the research shows, that if you do questions, you will do better. You will have a better understanding, you will do better on the exam. The problem is so many people just read the headline of the research was that, hey, if you do questions, you will get better. And so they took that headline, that superficial overview of what the actual research is, and they said, okay, wait, if doing questions is great, doing more questions must be better. And so they tell you guys, do lots of questions, okay, great. Then they say, okay, wait, what has the most questions possible? A full-length test. It's 6 hours of questions. Oh my gosh, we've unlocked the secret. So let's give these students 1,000,000 full-length exams, and let's tell them to take all the full-length exams because that will be the most questions and that will get them the highest score. How many of you guys have heard this? How many of you guys have followed the logic right there, right? Oh my gosh, the more questions, the more better. More questions, more better. The problem with that, guys, is it's an incomplete, superficial understanding of what it takes to succeed on any exam, including the MCAT exam. And the problem with superficial approaches, right? When you look at one thing, you look at a headline, as you guys who are preparing for the MCAT know, right? You look at one sentence, you look at one paragraph, you look at the question, and then you assume what comes next, and what happens? They trip you up every time, and you miss the question. Because when you assume, what happens? You make an ass out of you and me. So when you assume about research, what happens? You assume the wrong thing, and it ends up as a problem. When you assume with your MCAT prep, what happens? You are led astray, and you will sabotage your MCAT prep. And so we don't take assumptions here. On my channel, right, Premed Productivity, we are all about specificity. We're all about executing to the highest of levels. And we are all about the truth in the data here. Truth is what I bring to you guys. So when it comes to full-length tests, we can't be superficial. We can't say more questions, more better. We have to say, well, what do we mean by questions help us? And so today we're going to walk through this series of steps, and I'm going to separate full-length tests for you and why they don't work based on the literature. Are we ready? Who's ready? Like the video right now. Let me know. We ready to get started? I'm going to silence my phone so we can get at it like we really want to get at it right now. Let me silence this phone. Okay. The equivalent of when I tell you to do a whole lot of questions, the problem with that is that it's not what you do, but it's how you do it. And when I tell you just to do a bunch of questions, it's like if I told you, hey, listen, if you do a bunch of patient interviews and you give patients a bunch of medications, eventually you'll be a great doctor. Well, no. You must learn how to be a doctor, how to diagnose, how to do an interview, how to administer medication, which medication to administer. Otherwise, you're going to be killing people. And that's what's happening with your MCAT. I can't just tell you do a bunch of questions. That's not specific enough to action to be effective. So what do we have to do? We have to dive into this. So when we say do lots of questions and questions make you effective, well, if we look at the literature and we go into the details, it shows us that it's not just about the volume of questions you do. In fact, it has very little to do with the volume of questions you do, and it's all about how you do those questions. It starts with the fact that when we do questions and we're approaching questions, there are a couple key components to your question-based learning. Are we ready for your MCAT questions? Here's how we do it. The first thing is that you must approach your questions with an understanding that there are distinct phases of question doing. The first is that we do the question, then we must review the question, then we must do what, guys? We must create understanding from that question, and then we must what? Create a repository for that information, like our notes, and then we must have a mechanism to create repetitions to create retention of said question. So it's a multi-stage process here. And so with the first stage, the way we're looking at this, we have to look at the research that shows when we do questions, the high yield of it, the utility, is mostly in the review and very little in the do. And this is the first way that full-length tests fail you. If you think about full-length tests and the way most students approach them, it's a super long exam. It takes all day. So what ends up happening? We end up doing the exam, and our focus is on doing the test and seeing the score at the end, and not so much on the review. And so the first fundamental flaw with full-length tests is that they are actually a great assessor of your score and not a great progressor of your score. So they assess your readiness for the exam, but it doesn't progress your readiness. You guys understand what I'm saying? Full-length tests are designed to say, okay, here's where I am. Here's what I know. Here's how prepared I am. But the problem with that, right, is that we as preppers are trying to prepare. We're trying to progress. We're trying to get better. And so if we're only assessing and seeing where we're at, of course, we're not going to be prepared. And so not only am I not progressing on the days I do full-length tests, but I'm also what? Setting myself up for a huge psychological obstacle. Because here I am assessing my readiness months out from my exam, knowing that I need a lot more prep and I'm not ready. So what ends up happening? We get back a bad MCAT score. We take this full length, we're sitting there, we're nervous the whole time, oh my gosh, and the score pops out, and the score is awful, no good, terrible. And we're like, oh my gosh, I'm never gonna do well in the MCAT. The problem is, guys, it's literally like stepping in a ring with Mike Tyson. You are untrained. You're here to train, to prepare so that way you can be ready for your MCAT by test date. So if you take a bunch of full-length tests, all you're doing is assessing and proving to yourself that you are not ready. And as students, we have this fixed mindset where we're saying, listen, if I'm not ready right now, I ain't never gonna be ready. I ain't never gonna be ready. And we start that doubt cycle, that nervous cycle. And if you think about it, right, when you take your weekly full length, as a lot of people recommend, you take that full length, you get that crappy score back, and then you spend the entire week feeling like what? Crap, because you feel like you are that crappy score and you will always be that crappy score and you will never move forward. And so all week you study from a place of low, depression, negative thoughts, of lack of confidence, of this whole thing of I will never be ready. And when we tell ourselves we will never be ready, we've now lost hope. And without hope, there is no reason to try and to really commit ourselves. And so we've psyched ourselves out, and the whole week it's just dread, it's just terror, leading up to that next full length we can take to, oh, we're going to prove ourselves that this week we improved. And then what do you know? The next week it's just as bad. And so it's this cycle of repeated whoopings and affirmations of the doubts you have, as opposed to moving you forward and moving you up the ladder. Does that make sense to everybody? So full-length tests assess, they don't progress your score. They're designed to assess, not progress. And the reason that big distinction is important, because if we want to progress our score, then the questions must be designed in a certain way that facilitates those different cycles I talked about of doing questions. And so when we talk about progressing your score, what are the fundamentals of questions that improve our score? Well, it's all about that review aspect. So there's a couple key components. You guys ready? When we do questions, we must spend a significant more time reviewing questions than we spend doing questions. Not only must we spend more time reviewing than doing, we must commit ourselves to timely review. Meaning we must review those questions in short order after we've completed the question. Why? Because this allows us, and this is particularly important on the MCAT, because if you guys don't know, the MCAT is a critical thinking test. They have a whole section called CARS, right? Critical, right? It's critical reading. So in our CARS section, and for the entire test, it's a critical exam. And so therefore, not only when we review questions are we reviewing for content, which is a mistake a lot of students make, we're just reviewing, oh, did I get it right? Did I know this? We also want to be reviewing for our thought process and our critical thinking. If we take too long between when we do a question and when we review it, we have no ability to recall what we were thinking when we did that question. And if we can't recall what we were thinking, we cannot then critique and assess and analyze and progress and move forward our thinking in our critical test taking. Does this make sense to everybody? This is such a key distinction. As we go through and do questions and we review, it's not just about the content of do I know this, have I memorized this? It's about how could I have known this without knowing the answer? How could I have problem solved this? How could I have led myself in a better way? How could I have read better to get this answer? And if you can do that, that's how you pick up points. That's how you progress. But if we have too far between when we do the question and when we review it, it doesn't work. And with full-length tests, you take a test one day, you review the next day, and you did all these questions. There's no way you can remember exactly what you're thinking on that specific question. So what we want to do is we want to do smaller question sets, 20, 30 questions at a time. That way it allows us to remember, oh yeah, that was just a couple questions ago. And we can remember exactly what we're thinking. Oh yeah, I didn't read that sentence. That's right. I tried to go back. I didn't have enough time. Oh yeah. Oh, you know what? Oh, I thought it was this. And I missed that word. We can think about what we were doing as an actual test taker, and we can involve ourselves as a test taker. And a good test taker, you guys see my shirt, a good test taker, quality test taker is a money maker. If you want to be in the money, baby, if you want to ace that MCAT, you got to be a great test taker, not just a great memorizer. And so full-length tests don't allow you to do that. So we're going to take our questions. We're going to do the questions, small blocks, so that way we can review very rapidly afterward and attack our critical thinking. The next thing up is that when you do this review, it's not just about reviewing the question and saying, oh, I got that. We have to walk through all the steps of learning I was talking about earlier, where we take this question, we look at the explanation, we look at our books, and we see, okay, wait, for this question, yes, this is the answer. Oh, yes, this was a organic chemistry question. Oh, yes, it was about acid base. Okay, I got that. Cool. That's the content portion. But now they've explained it in their way. Okay, there's a Lewis acid, a Lewis base, electron donator. Oh, there's an oxidizer. How does all these terms fit? As rookie students, you will write down those terms. Okay, I'm going to write this down. Oh, yeah, Lewis acid, Lewis base. The question I'll ask you is how many of you guys right now could define a Lewis acid in an effective way? I'll wait. Comment in the box. How many of you guys can define a Lewis acid or a Lewis base and give it to me in basic form? And this is funny because I had a student and we were talking about this exact same thing for the MCAT because they were like, oh yeah, well, you know, it's about Lewis acid and Lewis base, but what's a Lewis acid? Oh, well, Lewis acid is an electron donator. And I'm like, you do not know what you're talking about because you're using definitions to define things. You're using other people's understandings to try to define things. What you have to do is once you review the question, once you find out what the core content is, you need to take that content and what they say about it, and you need to flip it. You need to roll it over and mold it into your understanding and create a clear understanding of, oh, you know what? When we talk about an acid or a base, well, the acid has a H plus, right? That's a proton. Okay, wait. So therefore, it's going to what? Bring electrons to it. So therefore, it's going to be, right, receiving the electron. Okay, that makes sense because then hydrogen, and you start to reason it through in your own way. Oh, opposites attract. Okay, we're bringing this. Okay, and then if we're at, and you start to talk about it in your own language, hopefully in a simple way that like a third grader could understand. Because if you can do that and explain to a third grader in your mind, that means you really got it down. You really got an understanding of what an electron donator is, an electron recipient is, an oxidizer, a reducer. You understand redox, and then by understanding at a basic level, you can then level up and add layers to it. So we create our own understanding. Once we create our own understanding, what do we have to do, guys? We have to take a note on that. When a lot of people do questions, they have this whole missed questions list. It's a waste of time because that creates disorganized learning. One of the keys to effective learning, to rapid learning, and to sustained learning is that we have to be an organized learner. Think about your closet, right? If your clothes are all over the floor, if your clothes are all over the closet, there's no organization to it, how long does it take to find an outfit? And then once you find that outfit, can you find, right, you find the shirt, where's the pants that go with it? Oh, that's what happens to you guys on your MCAT test. Think about it. The MCAT test, you may have thought this to yourself a million times. If I just had more time on this MCAT, I would get all the questions right. Right? And that is very true. And they've actually done that study, right? You give people unlimited time on the MCAT, they do so much better. Why? Because the material is there. But for the MCAT, the time limitation is huge. You have to be able to not only know it, you have to be able to know it instantly. You have to be able to pull that information out and then apply it quickly on that exam. And so if you have a disorganized closet where you can't find your stuff in your brain, how are you going to be able to pull out that knowledge, use it effectively, and get it going? You can't. And so when we learn things, when we go through questions, we don't just keep a random list of stuff. We organize our learning. So we should have one set of notes that is we can modify and we can organize. And so when we're doing our mixed questions, all these different questions, when we hit Lewis acid one time, then we get a question later on that's talking about redox, we don't have two separate notes. We bring that redox up to that Lewis acid and we talk about how that relates. And we talk about electron donation and receiving. And we bring that together so that way our learning is organized. So all that electron handling is up there in that one spot. It's not spread out. So it creates, instead of a million topics, it's going to shrink the number of topics you have to learn. It's going to carry over concepts. You're going to see the connections. And you're like, oh, wow, that makes sense. So we create our own understanding, and then we organize that understanding in a central repository of notes, not a million different note stacks. Next up, now that we've taken that note, something that students don't do enough of is that we have to create repetitions of that note. If you make a note and you never review it, what's the point? The whole function of notes is for you to go through your notes and remind yourself and to refresh that knowledge, right? That spaced repetition, everyone loves to use that word. Oh, spaced repetition. Execute that, guys. You create the note. You must build sufficient time in your schedule to review those notes, to repetize those notes. Because if you want to remember things, retain things for months and months at a time as you go through your MCAT prep, you must have the repetitions. Without repetition, there is not the retention. And so you have to build it in enough time. It can't just be an afterthought like, oh, when I have a chance, I'll look at my notes. No. Every single day. At the end of your day, if you studied for 6 hours, take 1 hour at the end of the day and just do review. If you studied for 10 hours, take an hour and review at the end of the day. I don't care. If you study for 2 hours a day, take 20 minutes, whatever. Make time every single day at the end of your day to review what happened. Even more, as an advanced strategy, every time you have a study session, take the time to review at the end of that study session. So wait, okay, I did the study session. I made all these notes. Okay, wait, now I'm going to take a second. I'm going to go back to these notes. And I'm going to make them make sense again. So now I'm building in another immediate repetition just to really drive home that knowledge and get that first initial burst of high-level understanding. So that way my curve of forgetting, right, the forgetting curve, is less steep. And then I'm going to constantly repetize to keep boosting up so I'm forgetting less and less and less, and I'm remembering more of that material. So that when I get to the MCAT, it's not like, oh, I only remember what I studied in the last couple of weeks. It's, oh, I remember everything I've studied for the whole 4 months. Does this make sense to everybody? So when we do questions, we have to first recognize it's not about doing the questions, it's about reviewing the questions. And when we review those questions, it's important that we understand reviewing happens in stages, and we have to execute at each of these stages to learn rapidly and to retain for a long time. And so the first step is taking what is told to us, either in lecture or in the book, making it our own and creating our own understanding that is in our words and is simplified. Then once it's simplified, we must record that in a repository. We must take notes on this, flashcards, whatever you want to do. Take that note. Then once you take that note, we must build in opportunities to repetize that and create retention. And by doing all this and breaking it down and getting specific with how we handle our questions, what do we get to do, guys? What do we get to do? We get to execute at a higher level, and we get to make the most of every single study session, every single question, and as a result, your score skyrockets. So it's not about what you do. It's not about just doing questions, because questions only provide the opportunity to be active. It's about how you actively engage to get the most, to suck all the juice out of each and every one of those questions. Yes, yes? We're at 20-something minutes, so I'm going to cut it off today. I'll continue this as a part 2 in next live stream. We'll get more into the details of full-length tests and how to leverage them and utilize them, and questions and how to leverage and utilize them, and question bank recommendations and resources. So if you have any questions on this stuff, put the comments below so that way next session I make sure I answer it for you guys and get to that question. I hope you've enjoyed this live stream with me. I'm Dr. Andre Pinesett, the pre-med protein expert. Like I said, I'll put a discount link to my MCAT course in the description box. Get into my MCAT course, guys. It comes with coaching, comes with on-demand lectures, and I'm going to teach you what no one else out there is teaching you guys. I'm giving you those little points of leverage and edge and opportunity to perform, to prep smarter so you can perform better than your peers, guys. So thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you next time. That's it for another episode of the Pre-Med Productivity Podcast. Show your love by smashing the like button and commenting in the box below. Today is the day, guys. No more excuses, no more complaining. You're going to take your future into your own hands. You're going to dominate. You're going to be successful. I challenge you. What are you going to do today to make your life better? Get to my website, premedproductivity.com. Grab a free ebook, sign up for a free webinar, and if you're really ready to transform, enroll in one of my life-changing courses or coaching programs. You have greatness inside you. Let me show you how to unlock it so you can dominate and make your dreams a reality.